Done.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. It is now 6:30. Commissioner Pereira, could you please do a roll call so we can see if we have a quorum?
Absolutely. Chairperson Higgins.
Present.
Commissioner Amin. Commissioner Carley. And Commissioner Costello, who has already noted her absence tonight.
Yes.
We do not yet have a quorum.
Good evening, Councilmember McDuffie. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hey, Commissioner, how are you?
I am
It's
doing
good to see you all
fantastic.
as well. Good to see you all as well. I'm gonna just be on standby until you get I don't know if you want to wait till you get a quorum, so I'll be on standby until you do that. How's everybody doing this evening?
Thank you. Still.
Okay. Commissioner Amin is present. So can we have another roll call, please? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And apologize for the dog.
That's okay.
Roll call. Chairperson Higgins.
Present.
Commissioner Amin.
Present.
Commissioner Carley. Present. Commissioner Pereira here. And absent is Commissioner Costello, who is sick at home. But we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. If we can approve the agenda, we're going to move straight to Councilman McDuffie.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second. The agenda has been placed on the table and seconded. Any changes, edits?
Commissioner Pereira, you saw those edits that Commissioner Costello submitted, correct? She caught those for us.
Yes.
Okay, and you took care of that.
Yep.
Right, great. They were very small. It was just some slight mix-up from November notes. Commissioner Costello caught those, so we got that taken care of.
Okay,
Approved.
so all right, so we have approved the agenda, and we're going to move right to Councilman McDuffie. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
You bet. No, I appreciate you all giving me a little time on the agenda. I know, you know, as we start the new year off, there's a lot that you all want to tackle. I know we got some great new commissioners, and I've had an opportunity to meet some of them who were able to join a leadership meeting that I had. Over the last couple of weeks, I've had several of them, and so I appreciate you all taking the time to join those. You know, Chairperson, I know that you were in one of those meetings, and some of the other commissioners were as well. And so I know that Commissioner Amin had mentioned to me that he wanted me to chat a little bit about the REACH Act, and maybe some of you all have followed some of the recent news about the REACH Act and the council's establishment of our Office of Racial Equity. And so I'm going to dive right into it if it's okay. I've got a meeting that's scheduled for 7:15, and so I'm going to try to keep my remarks as efficient as possible because I'm sure you all have some questions for me related to this or perhaps related to other issues. And so let me say again, thank you for letting me join. And for those of you who've not had a chance to meet me, I'm Kenyan McDuffie. I represent Ward 5 on the council. I'm also the council's chair pro tempore, and I chair the council's committee on business and economic development. As you may know, I introduced the REACH Act back in January of 2019, and I spent the better part of 2 years ushering it through the council, working with a number of stakeholders, advocacy organizations, and others who had an interest in racial equity in the District of Columbia. And in 2020, accepted the bill passed unanimously with the support of my colleagues. And so it's a comprehensive measure that really puts racial equity at the forefront of all the work that we ought to be doing in the District of Columbia, how we govern, how we legislate, and how we implement the things that we pass in terms of regulations and so forth. And so I know the term racial equity gets used a lot these days. And so I want to explain what it means to me and what it means in the measure that we pass at the council. And our vision in this bill is that we'll have achieved racial equity when someone's race no longer predicts their success in our city. If you look across all the different indicators for success, such as income, education, even life expectancy, home ownership, employment, health, race is the common thread that really drives these stark disparities here in our nation's capital. And so one of the bill's major provisions requires the council and the executive to create offices of racial equity, both in the executive and separately at the council. The council's Office on Racial Equity launched about a month ago and is responsible for writing equity impact assessments for relevant future council legislation, which evaluates the effects of a bill on racial equity, as we currently do for things like fiscal impact statements. So if a bill comes before the council, it's got to have a fiscal impact statement to determine, whether what the costs are going to be and what the impact fiscally is going to be on the city. And there also are legal sufficiency statements where there's a determination made by either the Attorney General or the Council's General Counsel about whether a measure before the council for a vote is legally sufficient. And so it's going to have a similar impact with the council racial equity assessments. And so along with the Corps' other work, is really going to give us the metrics to pass what I hope and what we need in the city are more data-driven, evidence-based solutions that move us closer to achieving racial equity and eliminating the really stark racial inequities that currently exist in our city. So I encourage you all to visit dcracialequity.org, which is the website for the council's Office on Racial Equity, and see all the new resources that will inform some of our work at the council as we move forward. Corps' official launch culminated really years of work, as I mentioned, by me and other advocates like George Jones with Beard for the City, Timmy Bennett, who's with the district's, it's called the Health. It's a nonprofit that really has driven racial equity work in the city and regionally. And so we work really closely over the period of 2 years. We had community meetings, some of which perhaps some of you have attended. And the mayor, I'm happy that the mayor recently announced that she started the search for her chief equity officer, which is required under the NEAR Act. I look forward to seeing this executive office get launched in the near future. As many of you all know and I think it's been demonstrated through history that systemic racism has created a lot of the structural inequities that require comprehensive solutions to address the things that are plaguing our communities. And in my view, the REACH Act is one of the most significant pieces of legislation that we've advanced in the District of Columbia in our recent history. And so in the budget letter that I just sent to the mayor last week, I called for a number of additional investments to advance racial equity and address the concerns raised by many of you and your constituents and other civic leaders throughout Ward 5. And so we asked for significant investments, and I'll just run down a few. In terms of trying to close the racial wealth gap, the investments amounted to about $120 million. Affordable housing and anti-displacement measures are more than $150 million in my letter. I asked for supports and services and investments around legacy and small businesses throughout the District of Columbia to the tune of about $40 million. More than $10 million in transportation and infrastructure benefits for our ward, public safety and community investments of about $10 million, additional supports and services for our libraries and our recreation centers of more than $40 million. There were initiatives that I asked for her to fund around environmental justice, arts, and culture. And so while I'm here, I also wanted to share a few quick updates about COVID-19. There have been 39,943 total positive COVID-19 cases in our city, and tragically, we've lost 1,001 residents as of yesterday who passed away due to COVID-related causes. And in Ward 5, we've had 6,121 total cases, and sadly, we've lost 177 of our neighbors. And so on the positive side, we have had approximately 3,518 Ward 5 residents aged 65 and older who have gotten their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccines, which is positive news. And we're really pushing when it comes to the equity of distribution of the vaccine to across the city generally, but in particular for communities of color that have been disproportionately negatively impacted by COVID-19. And we also know that the health and economic consequences of the pandemic have disproportionately impacted Black and Brown residents as well. And sadly, we heard today that Mayor Bowser lost her eldest sibling. Her sister, Marcia, sadly lost her life due to a COVID-19 related pneumonia. And so we're going to lift her up in prayer. I reached out and spoke to Mayor Bowser a little earlier after I heard the news and passed on the condolences on behalf of me and my family and all the residents of Ward 5 to her, as well as Joe and Joan Bowser, having lost their daughter. And so let's make sure that we keep them in our thoughts as we move forward in the city and really try to recover from this pandemic, both the health effects and the economic effects that are really hampering a lot of folks in our city. So I'm going to stop right there, Chairperson Higgins, and see if there's some questions related to the information I shared.
So I'm going to, since I'm the host, Commissioner Chair Higgins, I'm going to take the first opportunity to speak to our council member. First of all, I just want to thank you for taking us up on our invitation tonight and coming to our meeting. We're very aware how busy your schedule is. And I think you answered a lot of my questions. My first question that I had for you was just why? Why was this so important to you? And I feel like you did give me, at least you gave me an answer. You gave me an answer to that. So if you want to add anything else to that, please feel free to do so. But the other thing that I'm hearing here, Councilmember McDuffie, is that a lot of the residents, a lot of our community, our constituents are they feel like this could become more performative politics from DC Council and DC. You know, we're a sanctuary city, we're a safe city, we're a renewable energy goal city. We're working to be an anti-racist city, all of these things. And they feel like this is just going to be something else that we do that get lost. What do you have to say to that? And then I had a question from our huddle. You know, the huddle for the future. You've been there several times. They want to know what can they do to make sure that doesn't happen. And if the huddle's on, is Lilios on, anybody else, please unmute yourself and speak up. But can you start there for me, Councilmember McDuffie?
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. I got to tell you, I appreciate that you mentioned that for some folks, they feel like these types of efforts of elected officials are performative. I'll tell you, without getting too far into the weeds, but people who've known me for a while, like Commissioner Higgins, before I was elected, know that I got involved in politics as a response to what I thought was more symbolism than substance of the things that were coming out of government. And before I'm a council member, I'll have you all know that I'm a husband. My wife and I are both Native Washingtonians, born and raised in the city. Me right here in Stronghold. I'm sitting in a house that's been in my family since 1952 that had a racially restrictive covenant on it. My wife was born and raised in Congress Heights. We both graduated from DP Public Schools, me from Wilson, her from Banneker. And we're raising two young daughters in the city. And so I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I got involved in politics to try to positively impact my community in Ward 5 to really increase the odds for people to be able to reach their full potential. I know that, but for the grace of God and the support that I got in this neighborhood, I would not be where I am today as the first male in my family to ever have graduated from college. I had a community that wrapped its arms around me and did not allow me to fall through the cracks like many of my peers in this neighborhood who can not afford to live here like my wife and I can. And so that's where that really is the prism from which I view my work at the council. And so when I usher through bills like the Racial Equity Achieved Results Act or the NEAR Act, Neighborhood Engagement Achieved Results Act, these are big, bold, institutional change initiatives so that we can move government more towards a more equitable city. I appreciate how we nibble around the edges sometimes in government. I think it's absolutely necessary that we do that in some instances to support safety net programs, but I am really pushing us to rethink how we do government and understanding that there's been decades of structural and institutional racism in DC, not just America. We know that across the United States, but in DC have created these pervasive and really widespread racial inequities across all indicators of success, as I mentioned: health, education, employment, housing, transportation, business, starting a business, growing a business, keeping a business, policing, criminal justice. We've got to take those bold steps and not just do the performative politics in order to really close these gaps that we see. I always think about my grandmother who passed away years ago, but I always remember her saying, never mind what they say, watch what they do. And I would just encourage you all, I don't always get it right in the things that I say. I don't always speak, on social media with videos like other people do. But please understand, these issues of public safety, housing affordability, criminal justice reform are the issues that keep me up at night, trying to figure out how to close these gaps. And so that's what really drove me to do this work. I am hopeful that the REACH Act, if implemented with the vigor and fidelity required by the executive, will move us closer to achieving a more equitable District of Columbia. And part of what I would urge you all to do is to explain to your neighbors, this isn't performative, but it also isn't something that requires us to take from wealthier neighbors of other wards in order to give to Ward. We don't have to take from Ward 3 to give to Ward 8. We just need to give everybody what they need to be successful and to thrive and to reach their full potential. If all you need as a resident of the District of Columbia is to have the snow plowed on your street, the trash picked up on time, and not to get ticketed when you're parked in front of your house, then you should get that. But if you need a housing choice voucher, if you need unemployment, if you need other supports and services to be able to get the training that you need to compete in this market, then you should be able to get that too. And that's what really drove me to do this, Commissioner.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for my commissioners first, and then we can maybe take a few? They're coming in, Councilmember McDuffie, so we can take a few out of the chat or some raised hands. But Commissioner Higgins, Commissioner Pereira, you have a question for Councilmember?
I do. As you've noted, we have tragically lost some of our neighbors in Ward 5, and I know specifically in 5B03, we have unfortunately lost some of our friends and neighbors. Do you know if the city or Ward 5, through your office specifically, is offering those families any type of support? I know for some of the younger children, counseling support, any type of emotional support or financial support or community support as they are weathering this really, really difficult storm.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner. I really appreciate it. So what we've been doing, and my entire team, right? Everybody, I don't care if you're on the lead staff or on the constituent service side, we all do constituent services as staffers to the Ward 5 office. And we have been trying to help to get people registered to get the vaccine. We've been taking calls and coordinating with the various providers who've been providing supports and services. This actually came up in one of the Ward 5 leadership meetings between ANC's 5E and 5D. There was a suggestion made that we form some sort of working group to try to provide, if not from us, to coordinate through Department of Health or some other provider to provide the mental health supports and sort of trauma-informed services to people who have been impacted by COVID-19, if they've had it themselves or have had close family members or friends who have had it, because Yeah, this is such a new disease that we're learning as we go what the impacts are physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so we have been coordinating with the Department of Health. We've been really pushing to involve other institutions in our communities, like the faith community and others, to be a part of the response in COVID-19. And thankfully, the mayor rolled out a pilot where she's working with Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church to administer the vaccine. And we had asked that she involve some of the Ward 5 faith institutions, and she's going to be working with New Samaritan Baptist Church in Trinidad neighborhood to administer the vaccine. And we've also are working on, as of the call that we had last week with 5E and 5D, what kind of response we could coordinate for Ward 5 specifically to support members of our community that are impacted by COVID-19. Because many of them have been, not just the folks who've actually had it, we want to help them too, but we're not aware of all the other sort of consequences that flow from COVID-19. And so I don't have anything specific just yet, but our office is trying to coordinate around what that would look like. And if anybody on the commission would like to be a part of that, please let me and let Kelley know, who's on the call. We'd love to loop you in on that, because we want to make sure that if you just need somebody to talk to, or somebody to show up in a way that's safe to help give you the support you need to get you through this, that we want to make sure that we're there for you. And so we've worked with the mutual aid, Ward 5 mutual aid group, to get people food, to get them other resources, toys, turkeys, and we want to make sure that we can provide any sort of counseling or mental health supports as well. We've not formulated what that looks like, but we are currently trying to figure out what that might look like, working with DOH and other agencies.
Thank you. Yes, and I'll follow up with you and Kelley separately, but I'd love to be part of those efforts.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Chair Higgins.
Yes, Councilman, just going in a different direction. I wanted to know, how much of your budget do you think will be able to go towards some of the troubled areas within the ward? Specifically as the 18th and Newton Street, Otis Street area. And, I've been talking about recreation, because I know that since Taft Recreation has been closed down, we've truly seen a change in behavior, an uptick in different types of crimes here in this particular area. And I know we have the recreation turkey thicket as well as Langdon, but as you know, not all of these communities necessarily get along and would travel to do any kind of activities at those centers without some negativity occurring. So is there any money in the budget for Ward 5 for such situations at this time, or?
That's a great question, and I've got my phone in front of me. I'm not distracted. I'm actually just pulling up the letter that I sent to the mayor. It's a 9-page letter, and there's a lot in there. I will say the mayor's budget has not been issued yet, so we don't know what's in the budget. We won't know until the mayor submits her budget to the council. And while that was scheduled to happen late March, early April, I understand that because of some of the timing on the federal side about the next round of COVID supports, which is if it all goes through as it's been proposed, is going to have aid to states and municipalities, including the District of Columbia. So the mayor is going to likely request that we push that timeline back a bit in light of the forthcoming aid from the federal government. And I think that's wise, and I would support that. But we won't know what's in the mayor's proposed budget until she releases that. And once she releases that, the council will go through its oversight, and we'll try to maybe add some things here, take some things out, rearrange some things, reallocate some things. And so until that comes out, Commissioner, we won't know what's in there. But I can tell you what I requested, and if hopefully everybody's gotten a copy of the letter that I sent to the mayor. If you haven't, we want to make sure you get a copy of that. But I pulled it up, and it starts on page, public safety specifically, starts on page 6 of the letter. And I know one of the things that is important to me, and important to me because you all have expressed as much to my office, is there's certain areas where we've implemented aspects of the NEAR Act, specifically the NEAR Act's implementation of the Cure Violence model, which is the public health-based approach to violence prevention and intervention, which doesn't replace MPD, obviously, but on a parallel track, augments the public safety approach from MPD. And we've had it in areas like Trinidad, Carver Terrace, Langston Terrace, from the Attorney General's office, and then the neighborhood Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement more recently, as of this fiscal year, late last year, started to implement it in the Brentwood, Saratoga area, as well as over in Eckington, which is the Attorney General's office, Eckington, Truxton Circle, and then there's Langdon. Langdon is also one of the new areas where the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement specifically has put some resources. But what I'm asking, and what I think is more appropriate in terms of how we allocate our resources, is if we know that there are neighborhoods that are engaged in neighborhood beefs, you can't put resources in one neighborhood that's beefing and not also put neighborhoods in the other neighborhood that's beefing. And so we know that it's essentially 4 neighborhoods historically that have caused a lot of the gun violence that we've experienced in Ward 5. It's Brentwood, Saratoga, Langdon Park, and then it's 18th in Otis, in Monroe, in the area around Taft and Brookland and Woodridge that you mentioned, but also Edgewood. It's the 4 that are sort of interrelated. And so what we've asked specifically is to get additional resources in the other 2 areas that don't currently have them. It's the 18th in Otis and Monroe, and then it's the Edgewood areas, which currently don't have dedicated violence intervention resources in those neighborhoods.
Great.
And we'd love to get you all support on that request.
So Councilmember, how you doing on time? I see a few questions that came in pretty early. Do you have any time?
I probably got a couple more minutes because I literally have an in-person meeting that I have to attend that starts in about 7:15. So I probably got about 4 or 5 more minutes before I have to.
Okay, great. So
yeah.
I'm going to ask Dr. Mirabel Beltrain if she can unmute herself. Her question came in first, and then Renee. And if you have any more time, then it'll be Laura Warby.
And I'll try to keep my responses a little bit more succinct and not take as much time responding to you. I appreciate the question.
You got to come back. What I'm hearing, Councilmember, is that we have to come back to this soon.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Yeah, my question is really quick, and Roxanne is fine, but my question's really quick. I was just curious about the status of the Perinatal Health Worker Training Access Act of 2019, which I know that you were a supporter of, simply because I think that that's a great act that brings training to residents of wards 5, 7, and 8, and also addresses some of the health inequities that women face with perinatal care.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I wish I had come prepared to answer it specifically. What we could do, Roxanne, is grab that information and circle back with you. And Kelley, actually, you might want to just shoot a note. I don't know what meeting the lead staff are attending, but if you shoot a note to maybe Brett or Alicia or somebody, we could just get the status of it, assuming that it's been reintroduced in Council Period 23. So what happens, we have council periods that last 2 years. And so the council period, actually we're in council period 24. Council period 23 was 2019, 2020. Everything that was introduced during that council period effectively died on January 2nd as of noon. And we started over a new council period 24 and matters had to be reintroduced. I will get that information and let you know, but I am generally supportive of it. Ward 5, the numbers are woeful, you know, and we are not doing well in that regard, which is why we need to put more supports and investments into prenatal care and making sure that we're supporting people in the District of Columbia generally, but in wards 5, 7, and 8 in particular, where we see some of our higher numbers. And so I appreciate that question, and we can get you some more specific responses around that measure.
Right. So Renee, I want to start by saying I'm really sorry for your loss, Renee.
Thank you. Just real quick, my mom passed, she had COVID last year, and the city had a virtual memorial service for people who had COVID. And I just wonder if we can do some more of those kinds of things, because it really helped to bring us together It was citywide, but even if we can only do it ward-wide, that would really, really be helpful. And I'd be more than happy to assist in any way that I can.
Well, Renee, I appreciate, and first of all, my condolences and prayers to you and your family.
Thank you.
We've lost so much, and I was on a panel recently. It was about business and economic development, but I just had to take a moment and tell folks. I mean, I feel like there's sort of a cloud of just grief and sorrow hovering over our city and frankly over the globe because of the loss and just the significance of how many people have left this earth because of this pandemic. And despite all the advancements in science and technology, you know, we have, it is, I hope my mom doesn't mind me sharing this. She's a very private person, but my mom had COVID-19 and prayerfully she recovered from it and had very little symptoms.
Praise the Lord, praise the Lord.
But when you know I encounter people who've lost family members and friends, I just think about how significant it is and how I feel almost powerless to really, you know, help, right? Which is why, you know, I don't know if you all read about just my advocacy around vaccine distribution and making that process more equitable. And there were reports that I was, you know, raising my voice and screaming, and you know, I think some of them were overblown and there's a little bit of hyperbole, but I've been really upset about the city's response, and I will say that in the context of this being an unprecedented pandemic, where I know personally, Mayor Bowser and LaQuandra Nesbitt are trying their best to respond to this, but I am upset when I think about people like you, Renee, and others who, due to no fault of your own in many cases, have experienced this firsthand. And I know what it was like for me and my two older brothers and my younger sister and all my daughters and my nieces and nephews to show up at my mom's door from a distance and do the virtual hugs because that's all we could do besides that and pray. And so I will continue to champion these issues and make sure that we're doing every single thing humanly possible and marshaling every resource of government to try to get on the other side of this pandemic and lose as few lives as possible and as few businesses as possible, and be mindful of the physical, mental, emotional effects of this pandemic on our friends and neighbors across our city. So thank you for sharing that. And I would love to work with you. Kelley, let's make a note to work with Renee and others.
Point. It's even more of a challenge for those people who actually have to live with that person.
Right.
And care for them and be cognizant of their own health.
Right.
And they feel like they're letting them down.
Right.
It's very difficult. I'd like to, is there some way, I really would love to reach out to Mayor Bowser, because I can totally imagine what she and her family are going through, just to extend our condolences as a Brookland community.
Right. You know, I don't know the best way to do that besides the channels that already exist for the public to engage with her. Obviously, I've got a different relationship with her, but I appreciate the thought and the sentiment because, you know, she's mayor, but she's
human.
A daughter, and she's human. She's a mom.
That's
and
right.
when I did not expect her to answer the phone when I called her today, and she did answer the phone. And I appreciate that she answered the phone. And it just so happened, you know, and all the folks, hopefully this is not something you all share beyond this virtual platform, but like Mrs. and Mr. Bowser were there when I called, and I was at a loss for words, right? Because, you know, when I hung up the phone with Mayor Bowser, the next call I made was to my mom, right? Just to hear her voice.
Yes.
And to understand what it must be like for Joan and Joe to lose their daughter, right? You know, I can't even imagine. So
particularly, and I'm sorry, but I gotta make one more point. I know you got to go.
I got so many people on hold. And
I'm sorry. I'll send an email.
okay.
Yeah, please. Councilmember Laura Warby, she's really been waiting. And I'm gonna ask Laura, and if you could be succinct with it, then I think we can let you out of here. And you're still gonna be way on
Okay.
time. Laura.
I hope so. Okay.
Hi, I'm one of the huddle members that met with you. Maybe it's been 2 years now about
Yes.
the Brookland Manor, and I was very glad to see on your budget survey that you talked about your commitment to affordable housing and also considering the possibility of actually reparations for people who have been displaced. And in light of that, I wonder where you are at now with trying to work harder to prevent the displacement of our neighbors at Brookland Manor, rather than having to come up with reparations after the fact, because we're still facing a lot of loss of livable apartments for larger families in that complex.
So thank you for the question, Laura. I have really, again, I mentioned earlier that I'm sitting in a house that's been in my family since 1952, and so I'm mindful of the challenges that we face in housing generally, but housing affordability in the District of Columbia. And Brookland Manor is a very important issue, as are other issues like Ivy City and the Carmel School, in places where the city is seeking to address the affordability crisis that we face. My position in Brookland Manor hasn't changed. I'm still sensitive to the issues that are faced there. For folks who don't know, I know Brookland Manor well. I grew up, playing ball over there. I have friends over there. I have family who still lives there today. And it's one of the reasons why I funded the study into larger family units, because there were requests made about keeping every single unit that exists size-wise in the project when it is redeveloped. And so I appreciate the question, Laura, and I'm sensitive to the challenges faced by people in Brookland Manor, but I think it's important for folks to understand it was widespread support across the community for that project, including from the ANC and the Civic Association. And so, while it is a controversial project, and I didn't agree with every single point that was requested of, advocacy groups like the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, I did support the lion's share of them. The one that I did not support was the demand that there be the same amount of affordable housing units replaced one for one. The amount of project-based vouchers, which I think is 373, if my memory serves me, that are currently there, will be there when the project is redeveloped, but it won't be the same amount of unit sizes. What I did do is push the developers to increase the amount of 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms that will be in the new development. And if you look at what they had originally submitted, after my request, they did increase the number of larger family units in terms of 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms. And they also did a number of other things that I specifically requested around workforce development and engaging the Ward 5 community, both for jobs, but also for contracting opportunities so that our businesses will get a shot at competing for the project opportunities as they come along.
You're gonna have to come back, council member. Thank you again.
I see my colleague, Councilmember Henderson on this, so I don't want to take any time that you all would have it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Henderson, and thank you, commissioners, for having me on today. And I'm happy to come back.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it as usual.
Y'all take care. Have a great evening.
You too, Commissioner. Since we do have Council Member Henderson on the line, we're going to just make an adjustment because I know she has a busy schedule.
Yes,
so we can go ahead and then we'll move back to our original agenda.
Yeah, Councilmember Henderson is ready to go. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. So, Councilmember Henderson, I have to say to you, first of all, thank you for coming this evening. But I have to say to you, when I did a poll to find out what at-large council member, the community wanted to speak with, you won that poll. So, and I want to say it's been wonderful working with your team, Heather and Anna, to get you. So thank you again for coming. Let you know that you hopefully you're going to be well received here, because I said, who do you want to speak with? And out of all of our at-large council members, you were far and above that poet who the community wanted to speak with. So thank you for accepting our invitation tonight.
No, thank you so much for having me. And I don't know if that's just because I'm new and y'all are trying to haze me or what, but it doesn't matter. Happy Wednesday to everyone. And thank you guys so much for being here. If your day has been anything like mine, having one more Zoom call or WebEx or Microsoft Teams is a lot. So I appreciate your engagement and the issues around the community. I won't be before you long. I just wanted to give you a brief update in terms of what I've been working on and then take some of your questions if the agenda and the schedule allows for that. This is, we're about to round out month 2 of being in office. I like to joke with my colleague, Janice Lewis-George from Ward 4, that we should get an award for the first week of work, because no one ever expects that the first week that you start a job is during an insurrection. And that is what has happened to us. But, you know, I feel like it can only go up from there in terms of the things that we have to do. And we have definitely hit the ground running to try to get about, you know, the district's business. We are currently in the middle of performance oversight hearings, which, you know, as you guys know, leads us up into the budget that should be coming out next month. And there's so much that's going on. Where I have been focused in my attention, well, first, let me just say the committees that I serve on. I serve on the Committee on Health, Transportation and the Environment, Labor and Workforce, Government Operations, and Facilities. And I'm also on this special committee on redistricting. So there's a lot of work to be done. And of course, I also serve on the committee of the whole. My first focus has really been about COVID-19 recovery and all of that entails, ensuring that we have equity in the vaccine distribution, ensuring that our childcare workers and our educators had access to the vaccine in a timely fashion, working with small businesses and local businesses in terms of ensuring that they're getting some additional support that they need, but also pushing the district to be very forward thinking in terms of our planning about how we use the warm weather that is coming to our advantage to help some of our businesses, to help our young people, to help and support our families. That includes, you know, getting proactive in terms of how we use open spaces, how we use this summer to help some students get back on track, but also just to provide some additional support for our families who have had children at home for quite some time. As I like to tell the folks on the executive team, if we think that kids are just going to stay indoors all summer, as they have been for the past year, we are sorely mistaken. So we need to think really hard about how we use our resources to provide academic enrichment, but also just time for recreation and play. Had a good conversations with some young people, of course, these last couple of months. And really what they're looking for, they want the parks open. They want to go to the pool. They want to see their friends. And so how can we help facilitate that in a safe manner and a safe way? Another thing that I have really been focused on is maternal health. The first bill that I introduced was on maternal health Access Resources Act. And it really came out of something I was talking about on the campaign, but also from a personal experience of mine. As you guys know, DC has the highest maternal mortality rate in the country, a rate that's double the national average, and it's not great for Black women in particular. And yet our infrastructure and the way that we deliver care in the city is not towards addressing those needs. I think you guys in ANC 5B know very well, we don't have a hospital east of North Capitol Street that offers labor and delivery services, which I think is a shame. And we need to rectify that as quickly as possible. But also when it comes to doctors who, you know, our OBGYNs, et cetera, very few are in wards 5, 7, and 8, which means we have a lot of women who have to travel downtown or to the western part of the city in order to receive care. And during a pandemic, that's a lot, especially if someone has lost their job. You're asking me to pay for maybe 2 bus fares and a train to get to a doctor's appointment, or use that to pay to feed my family. And so we have a lot of women who are missing prenatal and postnatal appointments and are not getting the care that they need up front that could really help with some of the challenges. So my bill does 3 things. First, it sets up a pilot for Medicaid reimbursement for doula services. The research has shown that when Black and brown women have an additional advocate in the room during labor and delivery, it could help change some of the outcomes. The second thing is to do a feasibility study on the district opening a birthing center east of the river. Yes, I know that we have a hospital that is coming online there, but I'm not of the belief that women only need to give birth in a hospital setting. And for many middle class and upper middle class and wealthy women, they have been using midwifery services and birthing centers, but in the district, all of those are on the western part of the city. So what would it look like for us to partner with an organization to put that in a more accessible manner? And then finally, the legislation would provide transportation subsidies for women in order to get to prenatal and postnatal appointments. Again, recognizing that it's not easy, especially in parts of the city that does not have very high public transportation connectivity to get to these appointments. We see some data that shows a number of Black and brown women in our city don't seek prenatal care until their third trimester. By that point, we have missed a lot of time in order to catch some things. And so I'm excited about that legislation. I know it's only a small piece of the puzzle, and I'm continuing to have conversations with nurses and midwives and others about how we better strengthen that. But to me, it is an equity issue in terms of how we provide healthcare in the city. And so I'm dedicated to helping us move the needle on that. And I'm really excited that Chairman Gray has already scheduled a hearing on that legislation later not later this month, later this spring, I will say. Budget season is approaching. I have submitted a budget letter to the mayor. Let's see what she does. I think you guys know, we were a little bit surprised and caught off guard that we have a bit of a surplus in the city. And so we just want to make sure that we're getting that money out to families who are in need of care, but also to help, with folks who might be facing eviction, utility moratoriums, and all of those different pieces. So I'm really excited. There are a lot of different things that we're working on. But I feel like I've been talking a lot. So I will stop there because I want to be able to get into questions, but I also want to respect the time of the chair. So y'all let me know when I'm done, when you need me to exit.
So Chair Higgins, can we take questions from the community first this time?
Yes, it would be nice if they could have all the questions this evening, because we have plenty of opportunity to reach out to Councilman Henderson. So let's give them the opportunity.
Well, I don't have plenty of opportunities. I'm not an insider like you, Chair Higgins. I did have to do as much time as you did to be in that status. So,
okay, go ahead. So let them have their questions first, and then we can move on to the commissioners.
There you go. Anybody from the community want to have questions for Councilmember Henderson? Oh, Helen LaCroix. Helen.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay, great. Council Member Henderson, it's really great to see you here. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to check with you. I remember the first time I spoke with you on Zoom was a meeting of Huddle for the Future, and you spoke about your passion for childcare legislation. And you've just mentioned a whole lot of really important work, exciting work that you're doing, and I'm super, super excited to hear about all of it. It sounds amazing, but I would love to hear about childcare, because I think it plays a really important role in COVID recovery, and specifically, something that matters to me is returning women to the workforce, myself included. My kids aren't of age for childcare; they're now in school, but it's just something that's really pressing to me. So I just would love to hear you talk a little bit about how you see the district being able to support working parents through affordable childcare.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. LaCroix. That's an excellent question. And I agree with you. I think we have the latest stat was something like 8.5 million women who have left the workforce in the last year due to childcare concerns of a variety of issues, and how that has been setting us back in terms of all the gains that we had made in terms of wage equality and growth and getting women into the workforce and those kinds of things. And you're right, the childcare piece is if not as important, as good in importance as us getting the schools back open in a safe manner as well. I've been doing a couple of things. I haven't done legislation on this yet, but do not fear. I still think that the issues that we talked about last year are super important in terms of the rising costs of rent and how that has been impacting the ability of childcare centers to stay open and to operate. So the first thing that I really been focused on was around getting vaccine access to childcare workers, because so many of them had been working throughout this pandemic, and they work with a population of young people who, frankly, I have a almost 2-year-old. I say 2-year-old, should be 2 in 2 weeks, but she doesn't really understand social distancing. When she gets a boo-boo, she wants a hug, right? Like it's all of those different pieces. The next thing is I have asked the mayor to increase the childcare subsidy that's available, and as well to continue to provide it, not just based on attendance, but based on what is the full capacity of enrollment for a center, because we know that we have a number of childcare centers that are unable to operate at full capacity given the COVID-19 restrictions in terms of the number of people who can be in a room. And so if you're telling me that I have to be at 50% capacity in my enrollment, and yet nobody's giving me a 50% discount on rent or how I have to pay my staff, this is one way that we can provide stabilization to those centers in order to help them maintain through this period of time. The next thing that we have to think about is what additional supports that are needed. And not just what additional supports are needed, but how can we provide startup grants and capital to individuals who are interested in starting their own childcare centers, but can't get through sort of the beginning hurdles. I had a conversation. It's so funny. I remember it so specifically. I had a conversation with a woman outside of McKinley Tech during early vote, and she was like, I want to open up a childcare center. And I was like, that's great. When you do it, reach out to me. She definitely sent me an email a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, I'm ready. And here's the name and all the information. She was like, but I do need some additional help in trying to get capital, and try to connect her, or getting her connected with resources. But we've lost so many centers over the course of this pandemic, and we need to get our numbers back up. And so it's definitely something that's a focus of mine. And there's legislation coming soon.
Any more questions coming out of the community in chat or raised hand? No interest. Who's
so
that? Yeah, Commissioner Chair Higgins, everyone. Okay, so Commissioner Becerra, you question?
No questions for me. I'm just very excited to have you on the council, and looking forward to working with you going in the future.
All right. Anyone else? Dr. Beltran? No. All right. Well, that was great. Councilmember Henderson, again.
I love it. Y'all grill. I'm going to have to tell Councilmember McDuffie I got out with like 2 questions. What I will do for folks who are interested, I do I would say it's not weekly, it's not a spam, but I do have a newsletter update. And we'll put the link in the chat. So if anyone's interested in giving, regular updates about the work that we're doing, you can sign up to receive that. And I'm happy to come back anytime that you want.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take you up on that, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. You gave us a lot of good information, though, from the start.
Yeah. Oh, see, we do have a question. For testing next week. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Chair Higgins, I guess we're going to try to get back to the agenda, right? I think
yes,
Captain
thank
Moore,
you so much, Councilman Henderson. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get back to the agenda. We're going to go ahead and do our approval of minutes, our treasurer's report, and then Captain Moore, who has been so patient on the job, lights blaring, and I thank you for being so patient as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Commissioner Becerra.
Perfect. So moving to approve the minutes from January.
A motion has been placed on the floor to approve the minutes for January. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second call for the vote. All those in favor of approving those minutes for January 2021? Aye.
Aye.
Want to do a roll call? Commissioner Amin,
Aye. Yay.
Commissioner Becerra,
Aye.
Commissioner Higgins, aye. It's been moved and so passed. Going on to Commissioner Amin, Treasurer's report.
Yes, good evening, community. So let me give us an update on the treasurer's report. At the current time, ANC 5B has a balance of $9,650.47. What we have, that's our balance account. We have our available balance is $8,688.59. And that is because we have one check that is pending. So we have several, Chair Higgins and I have been working very closely with the Office of the OANC as we make this transition into a new term. And we are waiting for our appointment with the Office of the OANC. And I see that we got an email about that today that I haven't had a chance, this evening, that I haven't had a chance to open up. And this is pretty standard to work with that office to make sure that we start off this term in compliance. But we have been given the okay to continue to write checks because they don't see any issues or challenges with our books right now. So Commissioner Higgins and I got together earlier this month, and we did write all of our checks. So all of our bills are paid for the month. And that would look like our office rent, which is $550 per month. We have our Sprint bill, which we paid several Sprint bills because we had a few bills that were like back bills that we had to catch that up. So that was a whopping total of $961.88, and we paid our our office supply bill, which in this case is our for our printer scanner, the equipment that we use, which is $476 a month, and that gives us the balance that I told you that where we stand right now, $9,650.47. Do we have any questions from the commission, from the executive officers?
Nope.
Great. So, and I guess I would just end with saying to the community, thank you for allowing me and you have your executive officers right here, Chair Higgins and Secretary Becerra, to be the stewards of your money for the 2021 year, because this is your money that we're taking very good care of. And I have to honestly say that during this transition period, Chair Higgins and Secretary Becerra have been right there by my side, making us make sure that we have a smooth transition and that we have everything in order. And I honestly cannot ask for a better executive team to move forward. And so I thank my fellow commissioners, and again, I thank the community for this opportunity to control your money.
Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, okay, we're going to go on to Captain Moore. Thank you for being so patient.
No problem. You have to bear with me. We have a vigil or a balloon release up here in the Brentwood, Saratoga neighborhood. So we have lots of personnel up here, and I have to just make sure it's going as smooth as possible. It was from someone who was murdered last year over in the 6th district, but his lots of his friends and everything are over here in the Saratoga community. So all right, let me just start off here real quick with some stats. I'm just going to point out some of the highlights, I guess. You know, we're kind of on par with last year. Going over the 30-day comparison stats. You know, the last 30 days compared to the last 60 days, I guess. So one thing that stands out, and of course this is the whole 5th district, are robberies, armed robberies are are up all over the city, 5th District, and in PSA 504, which does mimic, for the most part, ANC 5B. We had 2 in the prior 30 days, and then 4, or then then 4 in the most recent 30 days. Motor vehicle thefts, on the other hand, are down. We had 4 the prior 30 and 1 in the most recent 30. So that's hopefully a sign that keeps a good trend. But theft from autos, we had 12 in the prior 30 and 16 in the most recent 30. So so that's not a good trend. And then property crimes in general are pretty much on pace, on par, with 23 in the last 30 and 22 in the most recent 30. And then year-to-date stats, just some highlights there as well, comparing the same time period 2020 versus 2021. We are on par with robberies with 4. Violent crime is down slightly with 5. It was 7 in 2020. Theft from autos are down. They were 34 in 2020. They're 23 so far this year. Hopefully that keeps going. And then property crime in a general is down. It was 59 in 2020, 37 crimes in this year. So it's a mixed bag. PSA 504. So let me go over some of the recent crimes basically in the last 30 days. We had an armed robbery gun at 1534 Otis Street, where we had some individuals rob a woman who was getting out of her vehicle. Normally 15th and Otis is pretty quiet, but I don't know why that area is getting hit there, because we also had a bailout of a stolen vehicle from Montgomery County right at 3702 15th Street, which is right around the corner. So we recovered that vehicle, but that's right there as well. I typically don't see anybody hanging out in that area, but that's an area that I told my officers to keep an eye on. We also had a threat to do bodily harm in 920 Girard. That's at the right proper brewing company. I think someone walked up to the table and they asked the patron for money, and then he indicated he had a gun and said he'd shoot that person, but then just walked off. Thankfully, no one was hurt there. We also had a robbery gun in 900 Irving Street. The suspects robbed the complainant of her keys and then took her car. We later recovered that car on Suitland Parkway. Thankfully, nobody was hurt there. And then we had a robbery of the subway at 3504 12th Street there, 12th and Monroe. We have a bolo out for those suspects, and nobody was hurt, thankfully. Let me go over some of the notable arrests we've had. We arrested the individual. There was a robbery at 19th and Bunker Hill. I'm not sure if 19th and Bunker Hill is 5C or 5B, but we do have an arrest in that robbery. We have an arrest for it's a PUD marijuana, possession with intent to distribute marijuana at 1350 Brentwood Road. We have an arrest of shoplifting from the Yes Market, which has a share of shoplifting up there. We also had a carrying a pistol without license arrest, 1350 Brentwood Road again. We had a carrying pistol without license, 2900 15th Street. We had a carrying pistol without license of 2 individuals, 1400 block of Rhode Island, and a carrying pistol without license in the 1200 block of Rhode Island. Let's see, things of note. The shops there at the 1300 block of Brentwood, they got some new cameras there, which will hopefully help us in solving crimes there, and we can view those cameras, which is very helpful to us there. I mentioned 15th and Otis as an issue, and of course theft from autos along the 12th Street corridor, and 14th and Kearney, we've had a couple theft from autos there as well. And that's all I have, unless anybody has anything for me.
Yeah. So Captain Moore, I do have a question coming out of 5B04. So I know that you're aware that there was a auto accident here on Saturday night that quickly turned into a crime scene.
Right.
And, and I see several of my neighbors on there on this call tonight about that. Could you give us an update on that? Why? Well, you can talk about it. How did that so quickly turn into a crime scene? Because we're just baffled.
Okay, so that is one of the carrying a pistol without license arrests that we had. So we had some officers that saw two individuals in that same car. I think it was a BMW that caused the accident. They saw them earlier in the car. All right. I think in the 13 or 1400 block of Rhode Island Avenue, or Brentwood Road. Later on, that car caused an accident in the 1200 block of Rhode Island Avenue. Okay. Yeah.
So Captain Moore, I'm sorry, Captain. We may be talking about two different. We're talking, and maybe I wasn't clear. It was 10th and Hamlin where the accident occurred, and there was a young man struck on a motorcycle, and then all of a sudden the accident scene turned into a crime scene. I know that the occupants of the vehicle fled, but we don't understand what happened after that. Are you familiar with that? It was 10th and Hamlin North.
I need to look that one up. 10th and Hamlin, it was a motorcycle accident?
Yeah, a young man was struck and very badly injured on Saturday night around 10 p.m. The occupants of the vehicle jumped out and ran, but they were just caught one block away about 30 minutes later, and that's because they were so injured they only made it up the street a half block.
Okay, I'm trying to think, rack my brain. I have so many crimes in my head. There was a bailout. It's escaping me right now. 10th and Hamlin, right? I am trying to.
Hey, Rob, while he's looking for that, so what turned it into a crime scene? Do you know?
Well, that's what we want to know, Kelley. Whether it was because it became a hit and run, whether they found something, or either the young man that was hit or the people or in the van, because they left the vehicle because it was inoperable after that. And we also have a question in the chat from Andrew.
Right. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I need to look it up. But if it is a hit and run, and we do capture the individuals after the hit and run, it is a crime. And of course, we do have a crime scene and everything, and we have to process that. But I can't remember off the top of my head if there were any other, weapons or drugs recovered or anything. I have to, look that one up, and I'm in a car right now, so.
Okay, so I can follow up with you tomorrow evening on that at the Ward 5 CAC. Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. I'll send you an email. Yep, no problem.
Thank you, Captain. Anybody else?
Okay. We have a question in the chat from Andrew.
Yes.
Yep. So I guess you talked about a couple of the robberies on 9th Street, one at Wright Proper, one near Urban. And recently there's also been a couple reports of gunshots, definitely probably around 9th Street, that area as well. Are you looking to increase patrols at that area between Monroe and Girard?
the officers are made aware of all those, gunshots. I'm not sure, I know there of one individual because there was a shooting at 9th and the block just south of Monroe, just a couple blocks south of Monroe at 9th along the tracks a couple months ago. And
Jackson.
one individual, what's that?
Was that Jackson Irving?
Irving, yeah. I believe. Yeah, right. Yeah. Irving. One of the individuals lives in that block, I think on Irving. But I'm not sure what is attracting the gunshots. I know we had sound of gunshots last night or the night before? Right, I think it was Monday night for Tuesday. And we had lots of officers canvassing up there. We couldn't find any shelters. We had officers canvass yesterday morning in the daylight. We didn't find any evidence, but the officers are definitely aware and increasing their patrols in that area as well. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Moore, I've had a couple of questions, and I believe I raised this to your lieutenant last time, but haven't heard back yet. I've had a lot of questions from constituents about the potential for repositioning a patrol car around 13th and Rhode Island or 1350 Brentwood. Based on the increase, there's been some shootings there recently, a very tragic loss of life that happened, I think, just about a month ago. Are there any plans? I know that originally in the summer, it was, we understand that some of the resources needed to be reallocated to address some of the protests around the city, but with some of those things having seemingly calmed down a little bit, is there any plan to have a more permanent patrol station there?
Yeah, so we do have a Saratoga special beat officer, or two officers. One is out right now, but one is still here, Rodriguez. So he does focus on Saratoga, and he does go up there to 1300 block of Brentwood, 1400 Rhode Island Avenue as well. And that's also PSA 504, whereas south of Rhode Island's 505, but we consider it all pretty much the same neighborhood. And we do have a motorman, Officer McCardle, who does pay attention to 1300 block of Brentwood as well. But we also have two platoons, which is about 34 personnel that are detailed. Well, actually, it's 34 personnel apiece, almost 70 people who were detailed downtown. Still after the riots at the Capitol. We aren't sure how long that's going to go for. We're hoping it ends soon, but at times, when they aren't downtown, and we do have them here, we, do like to direct them there to the 1300 block of Brentwood Road, because lots of the Saratoga crew likes to hang out there. We, do know that. But it's no guarantee that they're going to be available, to be there with that extra manpower. But, when they are, and, when I have a say in it, I like to, put a squad up there. But once this is all done, with these, protests or potential protests, I'm hoping to have, some more visibility there. But we can't really dedicate someone to sit there, and watch them. I would like that, that's my dream, but, we just can't have a post there. But we do know that's a problem. The crew's also hanging out in the 1400 block of Evar. It's just behind the Walgreens as well. So we have lots of areas, we have to go between. But we do, realize, that's an issue. They do have a good camera, system there. And then also, to speak on that homicide, we do have someone that we are looking at in that homicide. So, hopefully that will be closed very soon. As soon as we can catch this person. So that's a little green light there. But at the end of the tunnel. But yeah.
Thank you, Captain Moore. And as a follow-up question, you mentioned the 2 platoons that have been
Right.
repurposed downtown. Is that something that you're seeing across precincts, or is that is every precinct giving 2 platoons or more, or is that something specific to Ward 5?
No, I believe it's every district is giving 2 platoons. So all 7 districts. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Laura has a question. Chair Higgins, if you don't have one for Captain Moore.
Yeah, we're going to take one more question and then we're going to move on.
Okay. Laura Warby.
Hi, yes, I live on that 900 block of Irving that's had a lot of activity lately.
Okay.
And I just wonder how the violence interrupter programs interact with MPD, because ultimately we want to prevent these things rather than, you can't be everywhere all the time. And, particularly if you already know some of the groups of young people that may be involved in this stuff, how can we, prevent this, get to them so they don't feel at risk, so they don't need to be carrying guns, so that they feel like they have opportunity. I just wonder how we can all work together to kind of prevent this rather than getting at it after the fact.
Right. Is, and they're a different entity, the ones program and everything. For this vigil here, I reached out to them just to give them a heads up because, they should know some of the players in these crews and things like that. And, try to talk, talk with them and, get them to calm down. Of course, that's a very noble task. They, or futile, maybe a better word, but it's one that needs to be done. But they are focusing on, like the council member said, McDuffie said, the different, crew areas, the Edgewood, Saratoga, Langdon Park, and 18th and Otis. So unless, the folks are affiliated, which they might be, I don't have any evidence of anybody up in the 900 block of Irving being affiliated with any crew. I'm not sure how much, information that they have or how close they are with the folks up there. Like I said, I know the one house where one lives, but he's not a crew member or anything like that. So I don't know, what kind of focus, they give. I'm not sure if Kelley can expound on that or anything, but.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Thanks, Captain Moore. So I would recommend having, because out of the NERAC came the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. They call it the ONES office. And there's a couple of things that it does. The violence interrupters are managed out of that office, but they also do community outreach to members that are experiencing trauma. And in some of the communities, like when we had some, the homicides up at 1700 block of, was it Irving, Captain? It was the 1700 block of Irving back in October.
Yeah.
So the ONES office got engaged with some of the people on that block who had some trauma from that. So Commissioner Amin and Commissioner Higgins, I can send you guys the contact information to the ONES office. And then I would invite them to come out and speak with the community about how they operate and how to get them engaged into the community. Whether or not there's violence interrupters in a particular area, the ONES office should be everywhere. They're not physically located in Ward 5, but they should be serving Ward 5. And they want to come out and speak to the community. So I'll get you guys connected.
And Kelley, you can go ahead with your Ward 5 report. You can go ahead and kick off from there.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Kelley Cislo, and I'm your Constituent Services Director for Ward 5. I want to just remind everybody that we are currently in the performance and budget oversight over the next 2 months, and we did send out that schedule, and you can also find it on the DC Council website. We hope that if you've had a particular issue with an agency, that you do sign up to testify. It's all virtual right now, and you can send in written testimony if you don't want to be on video. But the whole purpose of that is to look at what works, what doesn't, and what needs improvement. And I know a lot of people have said they've testified in the past and it didn't make any difference. But we still need people to testify. And you're welcome to copy us on that testimony as well. But that is how the council works, and we do want to encourage people to actively participate in that process. And if you just want to send in written testimony, it still goes on the record. The other thing is I will send out tonight the budget priority letter that the council member sent to Mayor Bowser, and I'll get that out to you guys after this meeting. And then the ANC and the civic leads will send it out to all the residents. And then just one other thing, if anybody has unemployment claims that are still stuck in the system, please contact me or Marita in our office. I put my info in the chat. We can help elevate that and try to get that unstuck for you. We know how important that is to everybody. Then I'll take questions.
Kelley, speaking in reference to the unemployment, for those people who this past month, a lot of people have received notices stating that their benefits were exhausted. So what would be their next step if they're still not working?
Mm-hmm.
They just have a lack of income, you know, how do we go about that? Because when you look at the site, I tried to go on the site myself, and you see the parameters under the 3 categories, they don't necessarily fit people that, you know, it's not COVID related anymore. They're still unemployed. What route do they go?
So if they've exhausted their 26 weeks with the unemployment, they can file for an extension, which I want to say is 13 weeks.
Okay.
And then also, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you worked in Maryland and Virginia at some point, it didn't even have to be the past year, you can collect unemployment from those states. It's like there's a bucket of funds sitting there for people to collect on. So it's not double dipping. And a lot of times DOES will ask you to exhaust collecting from the other states first. So and if you're unsure, I know that the Committee on Labor from Councilmember Silverman's office has like a 1-pager. I could try to I'll find that and send that out again. It kind of tries to simplify what people are eligible for. But if anybody has any questions, they can certainly reach out to us and we can get them connected with the person at DOES.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any questions? Commissioner McCarrick, Commissioner Amin?
I don't have any questions. Kelley, I blow Kelley's cell phone up all week, so I'm sure that she's all right if I don't ask her anything tonight.
Oh, it's okay.
No questions for me. Thank you so much, Kelley, for all of your great work.
Thank you. Happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelley.
Do we still have Miss Butler, Brittany Butler on the line, Moker?
She said she had an emergency she had to respond to and she'd send updates in email.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to turn it back over to Commissioner Amin to
I just add one other thing. If
sure.
Seniors, if there's any seniors who have not been able to get a vaccination appointment, please let us know. You can reach out and email or call me and we'll see what we can do to help.
Kelley, what's considered a senior? What age? What age is senior?
65.
Right, because I know underneath some situations, senior starts at 55.
Yeah.
Much to my dismay.
Same here. Yeah. No, 65 and plus. And we've had people say, oh, but my mom is 64 and a half. And, you know, and the problem is that we still have people 65 and older, like 80, who aren't able to get an appointment because of the supply versus demand. So, you know, that's why they're sticklers for that group, you know.
Great. So is it back? Do I have the ball? Is the ball back in my court,
It's
Commissioner?
back in your corner.
Thank you, Commissioner. I wanted to just give thanks to the community. They've been so patient with this agenda tonight. So I thank you for that. And we're going to continue on. I think we're going to be on time, actually. But I do want to just start this next part of our meeting just to acknowledge that we are on, native land. And, since this is the racial justice, the racial equity agenda from various of American Indian tribes that we all sit on this land tonight. So I want to start with that acknowledgement. Also, this with the acknowledgement that all the people, whether it be civil service or private citizens that have been working for racial equity and social justice throughout the District of Columbia and this country, whether they're in ancestry or whether they're still here doing that work. So I just want to give a shout out to that. And the other thing I want to say, we actually have a young man with us. I think he's still here tonight. He's from one of the local high schools. And he is here because he's doing a project on DC history and the ANC. And I don't know whether Jay is still on the line with us tonight, but Jay, if you're here, you can give us a chat or let us know that you're here. Maybe you have a little bit of time somewhere in here to tell us about your project. But Jay is doing a history project and he wanted to sit in with us tonight. So thank you, Jay, for being interested in the ANC. And so now let's get back to our racial equity agenda. So the next presenters we have up, they're from DOEE and I think it's Alternative Grid, and we have Katia Botanic and Jacqueline Traeger that's going to give us some updates on energy and transportation and maybe tell us about how we achieve equitable energy and equitable transportation here in the District of Columbia. So Katia and Jacqueline, are you ready?
I am. Thank you so much, Commissioner Amin, for the introduction, and thank you so much for having us present today. And I am actually going to try and share some slides. Here we go. Can you all see the slides?
No, Katia. Oh, here we go.
There you go. So my name's... Oh, is it working?
There we go, Katia. We got it. Solar for all.
Yeah, awesome. So my name's Katia Botwinick. I'm with the Department of Energy and Environment, the Renewable Energy and Clean Transportation branch. And I really am thrilled to talk about Solar for All today because it's the primary program that DOE operates to kind of add equity to the clean energy transition that we're trying to usher through the District of Columbia. And so for folks that aren't familiar with it, it's a fairly new program. It was established in 2016. But since 2016, we've been working to increase the amount of solar energy generated within the district through local rooftop and community solar projects. And as I'm sure most of you know, as when we move away from burning fossil fuels, we help prevent the harmful effects of climate change. But solar energy has the environmental benefits, but it also has financial benefits. It is now often cheaper than the fossil fuel alternatives. So Solar for All is aiming to bring that financial benefit to 100,000 low to moderate income households within the District of Columbia by 2032. And there are actually two distinct programs within Solar for All. There's the single family rooftop installation program and then community solar. I'm actually going to focus on community solar for this presentation. And Jackie will talk more about the single family portion of the program. So community solar, for folks that aren't familiar with it, is community solar is usually installed off-site. It's not installed on your roof. We've been installing community solar projects all across the district in all 8 wards. We've been building community solar on large buildings like schools, hospitals, large office buildings. We have also been building solar in what you can see illustrated in this picture, which is a solar farm. One of the largest solar projects we just recently finished up construction for in Ward 8 at Oxen Run. The Oxen Run project will provide power to 750 households within the immediate community. So that kind of gives you a scale of some of these community solar projects. But community solar, since it's located off-site, means that you can subscribe to it even if you rent, even if you live in multifamily housing, because this is all, the benefit is brought to you through your Pepco account. So you don't need to have a roof with solar on it in order to benefit. So this is the way that most folks will actually participate in Solar for All, because community solar does open the door to pretty much everybody. And the way that it works is when you become a community solar subscriber, you are assigned to a community solar project. It doesn't matter if you live right next to the project or on the other side of the city, because everything's connected to the grid. So proximity doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter which project you're assigned to either, because the benefit will always be the same. And that benefit is a credit that shows up on your Pepco bill every month. And you know, solar generation varies, so the winter months don't have as much sunshine, so the credit will be a bit smaller. But then when we move into the summer, it gets larger. And our guarantee is that over the course of a full year, you should expect to save about $500 on your electric bill. And just want to get really quick into the application process. So DOEE has built out a lot of solar this year, and we are currently recruiting to try and fill almost 3,000 slots. We have over 3,000 district residents already enrolled in the program. We need to fill another 3,000 slots before the end of the fiscal year. So there's a lot of opportunity to benefit from this program. And if you don't meet the income guidelines for this program, but you maybe have some neighbors or other community members that you know might be able to benefit, please help us spread the word, because we are actively recruiting, trying to fill these slots. So the application process, the website listed here, doee.dc.gov/solar4all. If you go to that page, we have an online form. You can apply completely online. Or if you prefer to, fill it out by hand, we have PDFs available in English and Spanish to download. Or if you want us to mail you an application because, or if your neighbors need help and need us to mail them an application, we are more than happy to do that. Our hotline number is listed here, as well as our email address, which is staffed during all business hours. And we have a team that's dedicated to intake and will walk anyone through the application process if they need help. And then finally, quick word on the income guidelines. For Solar for All, since it's aiming to give solar to low to moderate income households, our income guidelines are based on 80% of the area median income. And that's much higher than a lot of other public benefits that folks might be familiar with, like LIHEAP or SNAP or the Weatherization Assistance Program. Those programs are usually capped at 60% of the area median income. So there's a much larger threshold or higher threshold for Solar for All, and a lot of folks who might not have ever benefited or sought public benefits before could still benefit from this program. So just wanted to make that clear. And then I want to leave my contact information here as well. That's my email and phone number. Please reach out if you have any questions, or if you want to help promote the program in your community, you need some flyers, or you want to talk to me about organizing a meeting, whatever your idea is, please get in touch. Again, we have a big recruitment goal this year, and I know we're short on time, so I'm going to pass it over to Jackie, and then we'll take questions together at the end. And I'll stop sharing the screen. Here we go.
Jackie?
I think you're muted.
Here we go. Hi, Jackie. Are you on mute? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So, Jackie, if you can hear us, we can hear you.
Yes, there we go. Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute myself while sharing my screen, but
Okay.
got there. Sorry about that, everybody. Now let me find the presentation again. So it will let me share it. There we are. Let me, can everybody see it now?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay, great. Well, as Katya said, we're Grid Alternatives. We run the Solar Works DC program as part of the Solar for All initiative. And Grid Alternatives is a nonprofit based in DC. We envision a rapid, equitable transition to a world powered by renewable energy that benefits everybody. And we do that through building community-powered solutions to advance economic and environmental justice through renewable energy. So our main focus is people, planet, and employment. And we do that through our SolarWorks DC program, we partner with DOE and DOES to help implement. So it's both a no-cost solar installation and a paid job training program. So just some details about our job training program. We have 2 12-week cohorts, one that operates in the fall and one in the spring. That's open to any district resident over the age of 18. You will receive a few certifications. So we have our IBT program. You'll learn relevant skills by doing, in-person installations. And then we do work with GZEP and SYEP and have a summer program that's 6 weeks for DC residents ages 18 to 24. Some details, it's $10 an hour, Monday through Friday, with about 3 days of virtual classroom instruction and then 2 days of hands-on solar experience. We also have career development workshops and a job placement support program after the program ends. And there's our onboarding requirements there. And I will provide this presentation so you can circulate it around as well, since I know it's a lot of details and we're short on time. What we need from you is a 12-week commitment, an ability to attend Zoom classes with your camera and microphone, enthusiasm for the program itself, and ability to work 35 hours per week. You have to be able to lift 50 pounds. We want you to be a self-starter, the ability to work independently and as a team, and have the flexibility and willingness to embrace change. So if you are interested, reach out to our workforce team. There's the email there, solarworksdc@gridalternatives.org. And when the presentation's over, I'll drop all the contact information in the chat as well. And if you're interested in solar for your home, so as Katya said, there's community solar, which is out, away from your home. You can also have it installed directly on your roof. And the way that that works is as the sun is shining, hitting the panels, it's producing energy. That energy is coming directly into your home and being used by all of your appliances. Your meter with PEPCO is set up to track energy in both directions. So if at any given point you produce more energy on your roof than you're using, you'll actually send it back to the grid, and your meter will roll backwards and will take into account all that energy you're sending back and will be offset from your bill. So you're both using it in real time and having any excess energy subtracted from your bill. And as Katya said, on average, our clients see a 50% reduction or about $500. So here's one example of a client we worked with a few years ago. And just like the sun shines differently all year, we have a lot less sunshine in the winter as we do in the summer. You'll see those savings similarly distributed. So you'll save a lot more in the summer than the winter. That also depends a lot on your usage. So you can see here in April, she, didn't pay for any kilowatts that month. But in the winter, her bills are a little bit higher. For our program, there's no credit score. It's completely at no cost, so no payment. We will not place a lien on your home, and there are no hidden costs again. We do work with a third-party ownership model. So we work with a company called New Columbia Solar that will actually own the system on your roof. So you get all the energy that your system produces, offsetting your bills, and New Columbia Solar is responsible for maintaining your system, for any repairs, anything like that. So it is a worry-free agreement as well. So it's a 20-year contract. We provide monitoring, maintenance, and repairs of your equipment. So you don't have to worry about that. For our qualifications, you have to own and live in your home. You have to have a qualifying income, which is, as Katia said, at 80% AMI, and a good roof, lots of space, and limited shade. But we will actually come out and do an assessment. So the first step of our process, we'll have some pre-screen qualifying questions on the phone, and then we'll have our team come out, look at your roof, look at your electrical service panel, and make sure that your home is suitable for solar. Then we'll collect 3 documents from you, as well as an application. So we'll need a recent PEPCO bill, a proof of homeownership, and a proof of income for all adults. Our installation takes 2 days. And then we will help you turn on your system. And there's a whole bunch of steps. So it takes about 6 months from beginning to end, but we'll work with you and be, communicating throughout the whole time, so you'll know exactly what is happening. And if you're interested, you can go to gridsolar.org/SFA to apply, or email or call us. And again, I'll drop all this contact information in the chat so you don't have to scramble and write it down right now. And we do have a referral program. So if you have friends and family who may also be interested in this, or neighbors, if you refer them to us and they end up going solar with us, we'll send you a $200 check as a thank you for spreading the word. So as Katia said, we're also trying to build a pipeline and get solar on roofs. So we just want to thank you for your efforts and telling your friends and neighbors about us. If you do refer someone, we need your name, contact information, and address so we can know how to find you to get you that check if they do sign a contract. And that is it for us.
Wow. Wow. Thank you, and Jackie. I tell you what, why don't we, you can get those presentations also to the ANC, and we can help get that out in the community. And also, if there are any additional questions, we can make sure that we get those to you and get those answers back into the community as soon as possible.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Katia and Jacqueline. Right. I think that we have, who's up next? I don't have my agenda in front of me. Is that Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village?
That is correct.
Thank you, Chair Higgins. That's why you're the chair. Is Tashelle here, or Emma here from GBIV?
Hi, I'm here. Can you
Is
hear
that
me?
Tashelle?
Yes, this
Hey,
is me.
Tashelle.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you? Good. I saw you. This is Tashelle. She is with the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. I think Tashelle is going to give us updates on what's going on with our village.
Ooh, so I don't have updates for you, but I can get back with the updates. But I just wanted to kind of just introduce us for anyone who didn't, who isn't familiar, and tell you some ways that you can get involved. Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it, Tashelle.
Okay. So thank you again for having me. I am Tashelle, and I'm the new program coordinator for Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village, which we just call Brookland Village. We're a grassroots nonprofit. We're dedicated to helping older neighbors in the Brookland Village age in place. And we do this through a couple of different ways. So we run regular social and wellness activities. We host age-related workshops. We lead discussions on age-related topics. And then also we provide volunteer support for one-on-one resources for adults who may need assistance within the community. And the great part about our organization is that we're largely run by our members, the majority of which serve as volunteers in several different capacities. So I know that was a lot of information, but we have a couple of ways that you can get involved. If you or an older adult that you know is interested in becoming a member, we currently have a pay what you can or free membership this year just because COVID has been kind of funky. So you could get involved that way. We also have volunteer opportunities, and then we're currently looking for 1 to 2 members to serve on our board of directors, which is a group that just meets monthly to provide guidance and direction for our organization. And in order to be a board member, we don't require any previous board experience. So I will leave my information in the chat, and I'll also be around. So if you have any questions or you're interested in knowing more about how to get involved, you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Tashelle. Great report. All right. So now we have, so I put on the agenda George Washington University. It's actually Georgetown University's, from the Georgetown University School of Nursing and Health Studies. We have Dr. Roxanne Maribel Beltran, but she said it's okay if I call her Roxanne to talk to us, give us an update. She was with us in 2020, and also she's going to talk to us a little bit about health equity and health equity for women. Roxanne, are you there?
Yes, I am. Are you all able to see the slide I just brought up?
Yes, we see it.
Yes, okay.
Okay, wonderful. So first of all, thank you so much, Commissioner Amin, for asking me to speak today. I'd like to start by saying that I humbly acknowledge that I am by no means an expert on racial equity on maternal health, but I do bring over 20 years of experience caring for women living in DC as a labor and delivery nurse at the Washington Hospital Center, and I've been involved in health equity research since 2017. So I promise I won't lecture today, so don't let the slides scare you. I already did that this morning with my class, but I did want to share some pictures that I think really kind of capture the subject for tonight's meeting. So first of all, some statistics. So this is maternal mortality ratios from 2017, which is the most recent data that I have. And I pulled some countries that have been represented by women I've cared for at hospital centers. So we have the United Kingdom at the very bottom, just because of our relationship with Britain. And that's 7 maternal deaths for every 100,000 births. And that's compared to 95 deaths per 100,000 births that we see in like the Dominican Republic, for instance. So the US is down there. It's third from the bottom at 19. So not great, but hanging in there. But where would DC fall if we were to look at DC maternal mortality rates? And so DC actually falls between El Salvador and Mexico. So at 36.1. Which I actually find appalling, that would be the statistic for the nation's capital. Now, some people will argue that it's unfair to compare DC in this way because they only experience about 20,000 live births per year. But even if we were to account for that, the facts are that between 2012 and 2016, there were a total of 18 pregnancy-related deaths in the district. And this is, the district that has access to care, we would hope. And of those 18 deaths, 17 of those were to women that were Black. And one was to a woman that was Hispanic. So I think that kind of speaks for itself. And that brings up the topic of tonight, which is racial inequity. So, I like using this little slide here. I don't know how many of you have seen this comparison, but I think no one in this room, whether it's through your lived personal experiences or through professional ones, needs to learn that there are clear health inequities in this country. And they sometimes run along the lines of socioeconomic status, but they always seem to run along the lines of race. And we can see here that the individual on the left, do you all see that little apple tree? So the individual on the left has, you know, not only is the tree kind of bent their way, but there's also a lot more apples, and it just allows the apple to fall in their hands, right? And this reminds me a little bit of the situation in wards 5 and 7 and 8 in terms of hospital and prenatal facilities. I know that the council member Henderson alluded to this, that Ward 5 actually contains only 5 prenatal care facilities compared to Ward 2, for instance, that has 12. And then, of course, the closure of Providence Hospital created an additional barrier for women living in Eastern DC. And even the one hospital that is in Ward 5 still doesn't take the insurance that a lot of women going to Providence Hospital had. So, you know, someone would say, well, the DC is a very small area, so, you know, the wards don't have to have a hospital. But I'd like to share this story that was published some years ago about what happens when there's not a hospital in your ward. So this was back in 2019, and Miss Bates' water broke, and she started experiencing some bleeding. So her mom called 911. And it took 61 minutes for the ambulance to get her to the nearest hospital. And her son, when they arrived, was actually a stillbirth. So she lost Congress Heights in Southeast Washington, D.C. And that's significant because there's only one hospital open in Southeast D.C., and they actually do not have an obstetrics unit. And if that wasn't enough, that hospital is also set to close by 2023, which I'm sure many of you are aware of. And so, again, this really needs to be addressed, right? So this brings me to this next question, which would be equality, right? So we could argue, well, we need to bring more facilities towards 5, 7, and 8, right? We can expand insurance that is received in those current facilities. And I equate that to equality, right? So now we're making sure that everyone has access, everyone gets that ladder, but that tree is still leaning left, right? And that person on the right has no greater access of getting the apple despite increased access. So equal access, but not equal chance. And so to share another story, Maria was a client of mine who kept missing her prenatal fetal monitoring appointments. And we never charged her for missing them. We always gave her an appointment, and our clinic took her insurance. So there was, you know, equal access to care. But Maria's job was to care for kids in her home. And our clinic was 2 buses away from her house. And our clinic was only open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And we didn't permit her to bring children. So these were the hospital center's rules for these prenatal appointments. So again, we see here a perfect example of equal access, perhaps, but not equal chance. And so that brings us to the topic tonight, right? Equity. So, you know, tools that we identify and then can address equality. So giving that taller ladder so the person can now has a chance of getting an apple. So we can bring programs to residents in DC, Black residents in DC, to the places where they live and work. Perhaps addressing some of the barriers they face, like travel, access, distance. I know Community of Hope has a great new moms group. I myself, as some of you know, am currently involved in trying to get funding for a project that brings health education to women using laundromats. We can advocate to local institutions like Hospital Center to use community advisory boards, to expand hours and make sure that those hours are protected for use by women that may not have jobs that give them time off, or may not have the transportation that gets them where they need to go quickly. But I think I would be remiss if I left it there, because what do we note about this equity is that now there's a good chance of getting that apple, but the tree is still leaning to the left, right? There's still more opportunity on the left side. And so I think that we need to make sure we hold our government accountable and those with the power to organize, the power to fund, the power to advocate for those with funds. Because we don't just need racial equity, although that is definitely a start. We truly just need racial justice. We need honest discussions about committees and task forces that continue to be created to study the problem, but only give us more meetings and more presentations, right? We need actionable items. And more importantly, I think we need independent evaluations of those outcomes of those items, as were mentioned by Congress member McDuffie earlier tonight. So we can ask, I think there's important questions to ask. I think we need to ask why it takes less time to build a stadium in DC than to open a hospital, and ask about East End Hospital, which is in negotiations with GW. We can ask about the status of bills like the one that I mentioned, the Perinatal Health Worker Training Access Act, which really provides grants to train residents of Ward 5, 7, and 8. So it's investing in our community, making sure that the workforce represents the women that they're caring for. And then perhaps we also need to talk about expanding Medicaid coverage for the postpartum period from 60 days to 12 months postpartum, and broaden those reimbursements to cover midwives. I know that Councilmember Henderson mentioned expanding coverage to doulas, but also many of our midwives experience limited reimbursements. So we can ask about, supporting more like Community of Hope and other advocates. I know Professor Johnson from American University has a great poster from 2020 that I can share in the chat that includes many recommendations. I know I spoke super fast in the interest of time, but I will post a couple of links in the chat. One of them, as I said, would be the, let me just stop my sharing here. Yes, okay. No. I will put a couple of chats. One is from Community of Hope's page, which shares some accounts from women and some of the experiences that they have. And they're doing amazing work over there. They have Black midwives that are caring for their Black patients. It's a wonderful model. Ebony is a friend of mine that I work with at Hospital Center, and she's doing amazing work. Maybe I can get her to come speak to you all sometime. She's absolutely wonderful. And then I'll also put the link to the American University poster, which has some interesting recommendations that I think do warrant taking a closer look at. So
thank you, Roxanne. That was a great presentation. We're going to have you back to follow up on all the things that you talked about, but it was very, very thorough. So, Chair Higgins, unfortunately, Zachary Parker from Ward 5 Education Equity Committee had to go off to another meeting, but we will reschedule him for a future date. So, Chair Higgins, I turn the meeting back over to you.
All right, thank you. And I thank you, Ms. Roxanne, for your presentation. All of our presenters this evening, fantastic. We got a lot of information. So truly appreciate it this evening. So we will go ahead and move forward. Single member district reports. I guess it will start with me today, 5B02. Just a couple of things. I know that people were inquiring in reference to the property at 3522 12th Street Northeast, the business that had a stop order. That business did have a stop order because it was illegal construction without a permit. The business has reconciled that information with DCRA, and they have been permitted to go ahead and continue the work that they had started. In addition, the Howard University School of Divinity, again, I know it was a lot of buzz. They weren't actually speaking in reference to Howard University, but the other property across from Providence Hospital. But again, I just want to reiterate that there has been no change to the conversations that we have been having with Howard University. I do ask that you continue to look at the site that Howard University has put up from the charrettes that we had. That site is still available. I will also try to put that in the chat box as well. So if you want to know what's going on, if you have any questions or any input, please feel free to go to the site that has been put in place with Howard University. And it's HUEast.com/event/East-Campus-Charrette. And again, I'll put that in the chat box. But that's it for me. 5B03.
Everyone, pretty quiet month so far. We are still looking for folks to join the communications committee. That's been a part of the. Do you want me to go back, Commissioner Higgins?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, did you hear me say, "Oh shucks"?
That's not what you said.
I think I said shucks. But I just want thank you for mentioning that, Commissioner Pereira. I forgot to speak in reference to that. I do have two individuals that contacted me in reference to the ABRA committee, in which 5B02 is the chair of that committee, and that's David Heckler and Boaz Engelsberg. We are, as I spoke with them, we are preparing our guidelines so we can have a unified process in which our committees are run. But I'd like to welcome both of them. I think they're off the call, but I just wanted to thank them for agreeing to participate in the ABRA committee. And for anyone else that's interested, please feel free to reach out to me. We have 3 more slots that we are trying to fill. And also I have some presentations and some wonderful information for those on the committee, so we'll be able to hit the ground running. Thank you, Commissioner Pereira. Back to you.
Of course. So still looking for folks to join the communications committee. If you are interested, if you are someone that loves social media or are great with newsletters or have ideas on how to distribute the very important information coming out of Ward 5B in general, but 5B03 or others, please reach out. We are very interested in getting all the voices included on this, and we have lots of free space. And at the moment, I have tentatively, I'm hoping to be able to confirm it this week, but would like to be hosting a single member district for 5B03 on Tuesday, March 9th. Just trying to clear up childcare, and hopefully we'll make sure that that happens, but I should be able to get out a notice to everyone by the end of this week confirming that date. So that is it from me.
Thank you, Commissioner. So what I'm going to do with my few minutes, and in order to keep us on time, I see Jay Sella is still on the line. So Jay, why don't you unmute yourself and take a few minutes to tell us about your project? And Jay, are you still there?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, well, now we can hear you.
So I'm working on a project for, I'm a senior at St. Anselm's Abbey School in just down the street. And I am working on a project for our DC history class. Each of us are interviewing people from an ANC of our choice and exploring why they chose to pursue being a commissioner and working for their communities, and also trying to learn more about the specific issues that each of their communities are currently facing.
Great. Well, thank you, Jay. And I think that you'll get a lot of support from, I know you will get it from me. And I know that my two colleagues that are here tonight, Commissioner Higgins and Commissioner Pereira, I know that they will also, be supportive of your project as well. So I look forward to working with you on that. It's one of the highlights of this position when I get to talk to our younger residents, our high school age kids and our college, university age young people. And also, I had the great opportunity to do an interview with my neighbor earlier this year. And I think Finn is around 7 or 8 for his school project. So yeah, this is one of the things that I enjoy. I enjoy the most. So Jay, we will be in touch. And
thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for me, Commissioner Higgins. And the rest of my stuff is in my newsletter, and I'll follow up.
I thank everyone so much for joining us this evening. This was a fantastic meeting. If you have any quick questions for us, please feel free to do that now for community concerns. Oh, I love this. Okay. That is it for the evening. Our meeting is adjourned. God bless you guys. Have a fantastic week.
8:34. I told you we could do it. I told you we could do it, executive committee.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.